And good evening, and welcome to Counsel of the Day with Shanrae, and I am Shanrae. So this quarter has come. Good evening, Sharon. This quarter has come and gone so quickly. We are actually on week 4, and our final week for this quarter. And then I will return again in August doing my third quarter for the year 2022. So let's get started. Let me open this up just a little bit so y'all can see. I am a degree counselor. My name is Shanrae Price. This is called Counsel of the Day with Shanrae, and I am Shanrae. Good evening, Dee Dee. How are you? Okay, so let me go on and read my bio because it's normally a 30-minute platform. Sometimes it runs over, like last Thursday, it ran over, and it was wonderful. Okay, so and let me open this up so you can see this just a little bit. Okay, so I am a degree counselor, and I acquired my degrees from Ashford University. I have a dual degree in psychology and organizational management. My great passion is bringing healing to people who have been through a traumatic and stressful experience. And when human beings experience trauma or severe life stressors, it is not uncommon for their lives to unravel. I help my clients, who include couples, children, adults, and families, to strengthen their relationships so that they can know themselves as peaceful, complete, whole, and safe. All right. So I am a Christian counselor. Of course I don't try to impose that on anyone, but I'm a Christian counselor. I'll let you know. And I want to read my website disclaimer, and we're going to go from here. It says, please be aware that due to the nature of the technology that I'm using, there can be no assurance of confidentiality when using this online service. It should also be noted that due to changes in policies, hey Corey, hey CJ, how are you? That all replies are to be used as advisory and informational only, and will not constitute an official determination. Information provided by myself or other counselors or counseling services are subject to the limitations of current and available material, but the final result or responsibility for successfully achieving a goal lies with you, the individual. Information online is designed to be helpful. However, this information changes frequently, and it is recommended that clients or yourself will consult another physician, another specialist, and or religious leader to aid you in your overall behavioral wellness. Okay, so I'm going to move this along. Again, like I said, I'm a Christian counselor, so I refer to a certain scripture for the month. And this month, the scripture is from Luke chapter 12, verses 48. And this comes from the Amplified Version. It says, for everyone to whom much is given, of him shall much be required. So, the King James Version, a lot of people grew up hearing the saying that to whom much is given, much is required. And so that's where that statement comes from. All right, let me open this up. So this month I've been talking about exposure, and I've been having each week a sub topic up under it. Tonight, this week, I'm going to be talking about early exposure to sex and relationships, and we're going to break this down about how early exposure to sex and how it affects people later on in their lives or in their adult lives when it comes to relations. And so we're going to move this on. And y'all know that what I do, this is my give back. And I, like I said, the platform is normally 30 minutes. Sometimes it runs over. And but I want to give helpful strategies for what if someone have ever experienced something that I'm talking about. I believe wholeheartedly that anyone can overcome any situation. Sometimes it takes some time, you know, for your reframing of your mind or understanding and loving and appreciating who you are and everything, and understanding that a lot of times experiences that happen with us, of course, it was a terrible, a lot of times a very stressful, traumatic type of event, but we can overcome it. And like I said, and sometimes it takes a little longer than others, but I know that we can live a more peaceful life. All right, so let's move on to the topic. This is an open forum. So if you have a question or if you have any life scenarios that you don't mind sharing, I will pause because I'm using multiple devices. So if you see me looking up and down, and we're on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube all at the same time. So I will address whatever question. I'll address whatever scenario that you don't mind sharing, and then we can go from there. All right, so the definitions, let's go. I'm gonna blow this up so you can see this. The definitions that I chose for tonight and this week is exposure. Number one, exposure says the state of being exposed to contact with something. And then the second definition is called sex. I chose these two definitions with sex. Um, Wow. Okay. Let me open this up. Number one, it says chiefly with reference to people, sexual activity, including specifically sexual intercourse. Okay. And so let me read this again. Chiefly with reference to people is what they're talking about. Sexual activity, including specifically sexual intercourse. So that's the definition that I chose for sex. All right, so let's move this along. All right, let's talk about tonight's key points. Tonight's key points, we're gonna, and y'all can see this, if you can see it, we're gonna move this along. These are the key points that I'm gonna be talking about on tonight, and because our time is moving very quickly. Let's talk about early exposure to sex. All right, early exposure to sex might interfere in this process of shaping a healthy, and let me open this up a little bit so y'all can see me a little bit better. All right. An early exposure to sex might interfere in the process of shaping a healthy individual with will, reasoning, and consciousness by occupying a major portion of their mind and their activity. And this will arrest their progress from animalistic to intentional things. So, early exposure. I said early exposure to sex because everybody's going to be exposed to sex, but early exposure to sex, um, it kind of interferes with a shaping a healthy individual and with their will, their reasoning, and their consciousness by occupying a major portion of their mind and activities. Because we know once all of us have experienced it. Once we all have been exposed to sex, I mean, hey, a lot of times that's on your mind. That's just something that stays on your mind. All right, so let's move this along. All right, so it says growing up too fast, early exposure to sex. And what they meant by this, they didn't mean that a person is deliberately trying to grow up too fast. That's not what the theorist is saying here. And let me tell you who the theorist is. All right, so it's Dr. Eddie Weinstein. Okay, he's the theorist. He's the one that did the study, the long-term study on this. All right, so growing up too fast, he's not saying that a person started out intentionally, just saying that if you're exposed to sex early, you're actually you're growing up a little fast because you're exposed to something that most people are exposed to when they become uh, early upper teenagers and adults. All right, so children are naturally exploratory beings. Okay, and we know that. So as they develop, they engage with the world around them. And with all of their senses, you know, we see babies, they always got something in their mouth, their toes, their fingers, and they'll try to put your finger in their mouth. But because they're learning their senses, okay? And so Our skin is our single most largest organ, and when it's touched, it can generate pleasure. So and everybody they and I'm not speaking because I don't condone anything that's kind of but our sensitive areas can be your ears, your fingertips, your toe. It could be anything, your back, your neck, your head. It just depends on the person. So but our skin is the largest organ, and when it's touched, it can generate pleasure. So we may notice what would be considered erogenous zones. Now, this is the study, the erogenous zones. We all have them, and begin to delve into discovery with great enthusiasm. All of these are naturally occurring sensual childhood experiences, and innocent, playful, delightful, and set the stage for cultivating relationships. Okay, we've all gone through these stages. I don't think anyone has not ever gone through that stage. Okay, so when left to blossom, um, people they can lead to healthy psychosexual growth, which is everybody's supposed to. So when thwarted by adults who admonished you with the idea that certain body parts are considered dirty. Now, a lot of older people grew up saying, "Good evening, Miss Barbara." A lot of older people grew up saying, that like things were something shameful and stuff like that. That's old school. That's the old way. Oh no, that's shameful, especially like in a Pentecostal church setting. A lot of the older people, they call them the mothers of the church, they would kind of, teach you don't delve into premarital sex and that's dirty and all that. So, this is what this is talking about here. They would talk about the idea that certain body parts are considered dirty or at least unacceptable to touch. So you might have emerged covered with shame in the same way that you may have gotten muddy in the puddle. Like, so, he just gave a comparison. All right. So the difference is that the mud and stuff can be washed off, and sexual shame penetrates your psyche. All right, and has long-lasting impacts. So with guidance, parents can become healthy role models for their children as children or young adults learn about their bodies. Multi-generational shame can hinder growth and contribute to harmful sexual beliefs and activities. All right. Good evening, Alicia. Sexual abuse. Now, this is what we're getting into. We're saying being exposed too early. Sexual abuse, molestation, or consistent exposure to adult interactions. And we're not. He's not referring to accidentally walking in the bedroom and watching catching your parents in the act. That's not what he's talking about. Because I think about all of us have walked in accidentally and saw our parents in the act. And then, we just automatically was like, oh my God, some people be like, I should have, like that. That's not what he's talking about. So even if a child is not being touched, can contribute to this stuff can contribute to psychological damage. They don't have to be touched to be damaged. Sometimes people can be exposed to it by hearing about it, by seeing it, too early. So what is not often taken into consideration is early exposure to like pornography and the traumatic impact that it may have. Okay, I'm gonna pause here. So I live in Georgia. And some of y'all that are on here live in Georgia too. So we have a local radio disc jockey called Ryan Cameron, and he is so funny. He's really a comedian, but he's a local radio host. And so Ryan, they were actually having a topic. This was about a year and a half ago, and they were talking about like exposure to unhealthy sexual interactions. And so Ryan had given an example. Ryan Cameron gave an example. He said that he remembered when he was younger, his grandparents raised him. His mom was a single mom, and at the time, I guess she was needing some help with him, and he's an only child, so he wound up really being raised by his grandparents. So he said that one evening his grandfather came home from work, and he said, "Ryan, come in the room." He said, Ryan, he said, "You've been watching my videos." And we know what videos he was talking about. He said, "And I know you've been watching my videos." He said, "Because I know where I leave it. I leave it on," and it was a VH1 tape. It wasn't no disc or nothing. It was the old school tapes that you pop in the video thing. He said, "Because I know where I leave it. I leave it at a specific place in my every time. He said, I came in, he said, and you've been watching my tapes. And Ryan Cameron said his grandfather punched him in the chest. And he said, Ryan, he said, do not touch my prono tapes. Don't touch my prono tapes. And he said he was cheered from there. He never, ever, even as a grown man, he said he never, ever, ever watched prono ever again. And so I just wanted to refer to that. That was so funny when he talked about it. And sometimes I'll say it to my husband, Ryan, don't touch my prono. And he knows what it's just like the joke between us. All right, so let's move on. So it says that in the generation in which the theorist was raised, pornography was limited primarily to magazines. He said, and they were hidden under mattresses, of like teen boys, or movies that portrayed images of what he thought as get it on, get it in, get it off, and then get it out, sex, but offer idolized, unrealistic, and stereotypical ideas of adult sexuality and women particularly. Now, you all know that I am a theorist. And so I actually had to, I chose to, I don't want to say had to, but I chose to go and try to, I didn't watch it all. I just looked at a little bit of porno. And just so I can sit there and try to see what, I try to see what the theorists are talking about. And about after the first 3 minutes, I turned it off. I was like, this is really gross. It was just, I was like, if people are looking up to that, that's sad. There ain't no, what I saw, there was no love in it. There was no intimacy in it. It was just horrible. It was just horrible. And so, but there are a lot of people that with addictions and stuff like that. And I don't know. We're going to move on from there. But I did a little research. I did like 3 minutes. And I was like, that is enough. That was, I didn't find it healthy, is what I'm saying. I didn't find it healthy. All right. So he talks about sex trafficking as well. And he said a survey of New England University students found that 93% of males and 62% of females were exposed to online pornography during adolescence. Researchers found that exposure to pornography before age 13 was uncommon. Males were more likely to be exposed at an early age, whereas more likely to report being involuntarily exposed. Okay, so the reactions to exposure were diverse. They said ranging from mostly positive feelings about the experience to embarrassment, guilt, and disgust. And now, and again, I'm a theorist. I'm a researcher myself. So, like I just shared with you all when I did my little 3-minute research, how I felt concerning it. Let me move this along because I realize I'm not moving this along too. So it says in the current era, sex is delivered 24/7 via the internet without parental controls on computers, phones, or televisions. Children can avail themselves a vast menu of junk food or toxic sexual imagery. Such was the case of, and he talks about a middle school young lady. Now I'm going to pause before I move on to this. I taught middle school before I was medically retired. I taught middle school, and in my specialties was special education and MOID, M-O-I-D. And I say that frequently because that's what my degree supported. And so I'm going to move on to what he said. But from my observations, because we have to document everything, most of my students in middle school they were already exposed to sex. Their emotions were very heightened sexually. They clearly were sexually active. And we had to monitor. When I'm telling you, these young children, they were very intelligent. They were smart, because even in school, in the classroom setting, they found ways to log into porn during classroom time. and we had to and we had locks and stuff on the computers, but they still were intelligent enough to find ways to log into these sites and watch, and then want to perform the same acts in the bathroom in school. And so but they, and this clearly, again, I'm saying this, they were exposed to this some kind of a way very early in their lives, which made their senses very heightened, or their emotions extremely heightened because of it. Now let me go to the case study. So our theorist said that there was a case of a middle school age girl whose friend, who was also the same age as her, showed her an extremely graphic website in which adults were engaged in sexual activities that were explicit as well as disturbing. So she had not, young girl didn't tell her parents what she was exposed to. Most of them are not going to. So she did not tell her parents about it. And this friend also introduced her to an artistic website in which fictional characters, I'm assuming anime, something like that. Fictional characters were involved in carnal acts as well. So since this girl was artistically inclined. So again, this is supporting what I experienced as a teacher in special ed and MOID. This young lady was artistic, okay, and she began tapping into these sites with increasing frequency, okay, and started replicating the art itself. So she started mimicking what she was seeing. Her parents were notified when she showed artwork to different friends in school, sexual explicit artwork, and their concern was that she had been abused. So and when teachers, unfortunately, when teachers are concerned and they see something like that, again, everything has to be documented, and then you have to take the steps to contacting the school counselors, and then sometimes, well, most of the time, they have to call in. I don't know where you live, but down here it's called DFACS, the Department of your Family and Children Services. In New York, it's Child Protective Services. But they have to take the steps, because if it appears to be abuse, then it has to be reported. So the teachers and them contacted this young girl's parents, and their concern again was that the young girl was being abused. With both she and her parents, they all denied it. It was like, no, she's not. She's never been abused. Okay, so the girl entered into treatment with the therapist, exploring her experiences and the impact that they had on her daily functioning. She presents as more physically and emotionally mature than her current age, which physically she had a mature body, an adult type body physically. Um, and some of what said that it was shocking how developed she was at such a young age. So she appeared to be a little older than what she really was. And so the therapist was kind of talking to the parents, and I'm just paraphrasing right now. Um, he was telling them that what your daughter is saying is very shocking, because he was asking the daughter questions. Her answers was extremely shocking. And so the therapist had to tell the parents that kids know more than what we think they know. Okay. And so he was trying to teach her how to redirect her conversations. Even if she knew the concepts of what she was saying, she wasn't mature enough intellectually to understand that it was inappropriate. So, according to Dr. Victor Klein, PhD, when children are exposed to pornography, arousal is imprinted via the epinephrine in the brain, can be challenging to stop, to obliterate, to stop it. So in the case of this, now they call tween age girl, because she's about 13. Tween age girl. This young lady is finding it compelling, and she wanted to learn more about sex. Okay, her parents and therapist team were working together to foster more age-appropriate curiosity, and trying to teach her the dangers of what was going on. So some of the things that they were trying to teach her, good evening, Mike, was that it's addictive. Pornography and sex is addictive. It causes depression after a while. social anxiety, premature sexual interactions with their peers, which that's another thing, like I said earlier, became a problem within my middle school, within the department, because the young people who were exposed to sex, they wanted to introduce it to some of their classmates. And like I said, in middle school, we had to have monitors in the restrooms because that's where a lot of them were trying to perform sexual acts within the restroom, and also in PE when they went in to change their clothes in the gym. They was so we had to have monitors with all of that. Okay, so premature sexual interactions with their peers, grooming by adults for sexual interaction. In other words, other some adults taking advantage of underage children, confusion about healthy expressions of sexuality, putting oneself in precarious situations, again because they don't intellectually, they don't understand the dangers in this, and because they was exposed too early to it. All right, sexual assaults, ruining of their reputations by posting and revealing photos of themselves on social media or sexting, because that's a big thing too. Isolation from peers whose parents may feel that the child is an unsavory influence, which that does happen. Isolation, doing harm to others. There were a lot of cases where some of these students were trying to force themselves on other students and stuff. Self-injury, suicidal ideation, or even attempts, desire for increased stimulation, other high-risk behaviors. These are the things that they were trying to introduce to the young lady, the test study about the harms of early sexual exposure. So if it comes to the attention of a parent, or if you all know someone who who they have a child, a younger underage child who may have been exposed to early to sex, some of the things that the theorists are saying here. If we know someone that's been exposed to pornography or something, it is important to they remain calm and don't blame yourself, don't blame the child. Utilize your parental controls on your devices. Educate yourself on the situation. If the child needs treatment, go on and seek treatment for the child. Get clear on values around sexuality, safety, interpersonal interactions, body image, shame, and pornography. Take the time to have a frank and as much possible fearless conversation on the topic. And it may not be easy, but it is necessary, a necessary part of parenting, especially now, because social media is everything, and it is so easy, especially with us, certain age groups, because we didn't grow up in the era of technology. Like a lot of us grew up where you had the old school typewriter and you had to sit there and click like this, put the paper in, scroll it in. You had your whiteout and you type, and you had to make sure you had the strip on the top, and you typing and stuff. So that a lot of us grew up in that era. We didn't grow up in this, in this technology era. So our children, like the babies, it seemed like they are born and they born with a cell phone in their hand. They know how the babies know how to work a cell phone technology better than most of us. So because they understand this technology, and because they can maneuver it and work it a lot of times way better than us, it is so much easier for them to get to be exposed to certain things early, especially things that they should not be exposed to until they're mature enough, a young adult and everything. So the psychologist was given this. And also, let me give you 7 more. Oh, let me keep, because I'm talking and I'm not moving this. Let me see where I'm at. I can't see y'all. Going up too early. Okay, let me move this on, because now we're going to talk about that. Okay. All right, 7 ways that adult content can damage a child. Okay, and so we're going to talk about this very briefly, because I want to talk about the strategies. You know, I don't like to stay on problems or situations. I like to talk about strategies. So there's 7 ways that adult contact can, no, it will damage a child's mind. Okay, so there are a variety of ways that the adult contact can impact a young child negatively if they're exposed to it. Number one, early sexual intercourse. It's been observed that young people who are exposed to sex or pornography content at a very young age are highly likely to engage in sexual activities early in age. Porn depicts sexual activity. Okay, so let's talk real. Let's be real. We are most of us adults. We know if you see something, if you hear something in a sexual manner, because again, we are all human. It's gonna pique our curiosity. You're gonna be like, you know, maybe I need to go and talk to my husband or talk to my spouse. You know, so imagine a child being exposed to this early. It's going to pique their interest as well. Okay, so porn depicts sexual activity in many different ways: casual, consequence-free, violent, um, etc. And many are not socially normal or accepted. Okay, and potentially not legal. Okay, someone who views this type of content may often seek out what they see, listen, or observe. So number one was early sexual intercourse and what it does. Sex addiction. Now let's talk, because they said it brings on sex addiction. So it has been observed that young people who are exposed to sex or porn content at a very young age are highly likely to develop an intimacy disorder. That's what I was talking about earlier. When I did my little 3-minute research, like I said, I observed no type of love, no real intimacy. It was so disgusting. 3 minutes and that was it. I was done. All right. So this study and this theory, it follows up on it. Okay, so they develop an intimacy disorder and or sex addiction. The exposure may cause trauma and impair the young person's social and interpersonal development. So early exposure, and it's starting to break it down to porno, it can damage a child's moral compass. Okay, I'm going to say it again. Early exposure to porn can damage a child's moral compass, potentially leading them to act out sexually against other people, commit an act of rape. Like I said, being a retired teacher, because they don't understand consequences, they don't even understand what they're really doing. Therefore, they have been, a lot of them have tried to force these actions on another peer. Okay. So again, act out sexually against another person, commit an act of rape, molestation, or sexual violence. Sexual aggression, that's another thing. This is another thing broken down. So screen time has skyrocketed, and that's what I was talking about earlier, about how these young people are so tech savvy. Everything is screen time. Every time you see somebody, a young millennial on down, they in their phone. They in their phone, on their laptop. Screen time has skyrocketed, okay? Influenced big time. And of course, COVID played its role in it too, because most of us were locked away. So everything socially became through Zoom, FaceTime, stuff like that. So screen time has skyrocketed. Unfortunately, increase of screen time and time online means an increase in the possibility and the probability of a young person viewing sexual aggressive content. This exposure may cause a viewer to display varied kinds of sexual aggression against future partners. Pornography and related content will often portray unrealistic images of both genders in a sexually explicit way. Generally, one gender acts as a subordinate to the other, and mostly it's men who are shown as aggressive and emotionless people, and women are portrayed as weak, naive, and submissive. So that's a lot of things that that the therapist was saying that pornography and different things are portrayed as. Objectification. Media, entertainment, and other adult content often objectifies women. The way sex education is delivered and discussed can often be alarming. Many times, women are portrayed as nothing more than sexual objects. We know, especially of us that are older, we know that, yeah, that's true. That is true. Coming up, and a lot, for years, women have only been portrayed as sexual objects, but now is a different day and time. Okay, so while ads and TV shows often exploit the feminine side of women, sexually and emotionally, this objectification runs the risk of normalizing a teen to this behavior. Okay. Early age pornography addiction can also lead the viewer to violate the traditional ways of having an intimate relationship. Porn, again, often portrays the man as someone from a higher level and a higher hierarchy, ego, business, executive teacher, rich man, etc. And the female as someone from a lower level, example, secretary, student, or wannabe actress. Okay? All right. So it encourages violence. Adult content with violence, porn, action movies, explicit imagery. And you know what? And I wanted to give an example right here. I remember watching the James Brown movie, Get Up, years ago. And they went back and they talked about the history of James Brown's mom and his father. And I don't want to give it away if you have not seen it, but there was a scene in there where James Brown's mom, her career was the oldest career ever known that from women. Y'all get what I'm saying? That was his mom. That was her career. And then I don't know if the mom was married to the father or not, but whenever he came around, James Brown, he was a little child, and the father came around whenever he felt like it. And when he came around, he abused the mother physically. And then, in order for her to get him to stop abusing her physically, she would have to perform sexual acts. And so this here is definitely, and when I saw that this here, what this is talking about, encourages violence. This is exactly what the theorist was talking about. Okay, adult content with violence, movies, action movies, porn can highly distort the way young children see the world if they're exposed to this stuff early. Some studies suggest that access to violent content at a young age can actually lead to violent behavior, which studies have proven it does. It really does. This could include bullying, assaulting, or fighting another child, or acting out against someone in a sexual and physically harmful way later on in life. Okay, so they talked about a famous serial killer. I'm not going to go into this. But when they found him, they caught him. And when they caught him, he still had to be in therapy while he was in jail. And the findings was that he was exposed. One of the things, he was exposed very early on to sex, but of course in the wrong type of way, violently, and he became a well-known serial killer. All right, the internet addiction disorder. There is a real thing called internet addiction disorder, which is excessive use of the internet to view adult content. Can have an impact on a young person's mind. I said earlier when I was teaching, and again, my middle school special ed MOID students, this was one of the main things that we as teachers had dealt with a lot. We had to constantly monitor our students because they were so intellectual. They knew how to break through the codes on the computer and find these sites. They were addicted to it, and so it impacts a young person's mind, and it could lead to issues and disorders such as low self-esteem later on, bad sleeping habits, suicidal thoughts, and then continuous use of the internet to view aggressive or explicit content may also alter a child's mental wiring in a way that they become obsessed with any sexual stimuli that they see and is addicted to its access. If anyone has any questions or scenarios, feel free to ask. That's what we're here for, and I will pause. This also causes, like I said earlier, intimacy disorders. Studies suggest that approximately 2.5% of the United States population is suffering from intimacy disorder. Exposure to adult and pornographic content can trigger trauma and may lead to sex addiction and other intimacy problems. How can you help a child? If you know someone that's experiencing this, how can we help the child? Let me move this on. How can a child be helped? All right. Okay, I had so much. All right, let me blow this up really quick. How can we help someone, a child? All right, it starts with understanding, awareness, and conversations. Talk to that child about adult content and its potential effects on them, others, and the family. All right, discuss the do's and the don'ts and talk about realistic and respectful ways to avoid issues and exposure to bad content. All right, so that's number one. Agree on and set up some rules, regulations, and accountabilities around internet use and activity. Discuss why adult content can impact our mental and emotional health in a negative way, and then how these rules are going to help them. 69% of parents believe educating their children about pornography is essential as their potential exposure is high. It's very high. 77% see themselves as responsible for providing this education in the home. Okay, and I agree. I believe it is the parents who should teach their children at the right age about sex education. Now the school, they offer it too, but I strongly believe it is the parents who should teach their children sex education at the appropriate age. Okay, that's what this is saying. Yet less than half parents have reported having actually spoken to their children about pornography. I'm trying to remember what age was I when my mother, we learned a little early because I grew up in New York and I grew up in the projects in New York. So one of my first friends who I went to school with, and I can't name her name, in sixth grade, she had her first baby in sixth grade. So we had just graduated fifth grade, elementary school, got to middle school. She had her first baby in sixth grade. By the time we got to eighth grade, she had three. So, and unfortunately, again, because of the area where I grew up, it was a lot. A lot of the young people they had to grow up fast. They grew up because it was very dangerous. It was a very dangerous area. So everything we was exposed to, we saw, we heard everything. And so my mother had to talk to us early concerning sex ed. Now we didn't do it. We didn't do it early. It was way later before I started doing it. Whatever like that. But my mother educated us because we had to be educated early. Because again, one of my friends had her first child in the sixth grade. Okay, so that's the environment that I grew up in, where babies were having babies. Okay, so wondering what else can be done if a child has found pornography online. Let me see. Does anyone have anything to say? And here's some of some they call it e-safety. Number one, again, stay calm. Try to approach the situation calmly. And if you are upset or angry, your child may feel like they can't come to you about other concerns in the future. So thank them for being brave enough to let you know. Reassure them that you'll sort it out, help them sort everything out. Number two, Greta says yes. Barbara said, I know that's right. Oh, wait a minute, I'm just seeing all of this. I'm sorry, I'm just seeing y'all comments. Mike said, Lord help. Yes, exactly. He said, I concur. I was custodian K through 12 for 4. Oh, wow. Ooh, I know. Yeah, I know you saw and experienced a whole lot, Mike. Greta said yes, and Barbara said, I know that's right. Okay. Number 2 says, listen, assess, and pause. So if a child has accidentally viewed explicit content, ask them to fill you in on the details of what they saw so you can help manage the situation. For example, find out how they found it, where am I? How and where it happened at, who, if anyone, showed it to them, and how they felt when they saw it. Okay, and these questions are so important. Ask them this. Okay, it may be tempting to give a big lecture right there on the spot, but sometimes that's not the best option. Take some time to plan your approach to the topic. You'll have a better outcome if everyone stays calm. Number three, reassure the child that they're not in trouble, which they can't be in trouble if they stumbled on it or if somebody showed them it, So we have to be, even though it's stressful, and because it's traumatic for a parent to find out that their child was exposed to a sexual something early. Okay, so try to understand rather than to criticize or punish. When children fear punishment, they may close down emotionally. They may be reluctant to talk and may struggle to listen or understand. Okay, this could lead the child to hide their behavior or not want to approach, the adult or the parent in the future. So try not to remove your child's device or online access completely. I'm going to say that again. Try not to take their devices from them totally. Now, of course, the parents, you're going to have to instill boundaries. You with monitoring, you'll have this amount of time throughout the day after you get in from school and this, that, the other, on your devices. But because of what happened, we're all gonna agree to be on our devices together in one room. It's you just have to find the correct approach. All right. So try not to remove their devices totally from them, as they're going to see it as punishment. And if they say that they have not been watching it or been shown pornography, but you know that they have, it's best to tell them what you know rather than getting mad at them for lying. The conversation is likely going to be ineffective if you're upset and if they are defensive. Okay, so number 4 says be sensitive to how they feel. And then it's okay to explain to them how you feel as a parent. Because a lot of times, children or young people, they don't understand it because they're still, their brains are not fully developed as of yet, although their bodies may be, but their brains are not as developed as ours. It's okay to let them know that you're traumatized as well as their parent, and that we're working together. We're going to get through this together. But okay, I'm going to trust you, but you're going to have to give me some reasons why to trust you. If you're struggling, then we can move this. We can go get therapy together. So it's just, working through it. Sometimes it may take some more steps, because again, we're dealing with children whose minds are not fully developed, but they've been exposed to some adult things, and their curiosity has been piqued. So it may take a process, but you can get over it. You can get through it. So this makes the conversation less confronting and allows them to talk more openly about this experience. One of the questions you have to think about, and then you can tell them the same thing with you. Think about, does your child feel good? Do they feel bad? Do they feel safe? Do they feel scared? Do they feel uncomfortable? Curious? Do they feel repulsed? Do they feel something else? Any or all of these feelings are normal. They're all normal reactions, but they also need to understand that whatever reactions we're having as parents are normal as well. Okay, so and then and again, don't be afraid to seek professional help. If they're concerned that the child is too upset or really, really struggling to get through the process. And then you're going to encourage the child, talk to them about any questions that they have about what they come across online. Let them know that they can always come to you and talk to you. So this was tonight. This was part 1, early exposure to sex. Thursday night, we're going to bring this over into early exposure to sex. Well, how would it affect you as an adult? A young adult to adult in your adult years in your relationships, because with early exposure to sex, it does affect you long term, even into your adult years when it comes to relationships. But everything, there is a strategy and things can get better. All right, so I've been talking and trying to move this along, and let me move these along too. We're at the end. Let me open this up a little bit. For my fellow theorists, my fellow counselors, or if you're just interested, here are my theory references. You can look at them. You can find these teachings that I talked about on this evening for yourself. Okay, so if there's a past Counsel of the Day with Shanrae series that you missed, or you just want to rewatch, you can go to my YouTube channel at Shanrae Price. Please like, share, and subscribe, and then select any past series to watch. Or if you want to rewatch this, go to my YouTube channel and just go on and rewatch it. All right, so I am a professional one-on-one counselor. If you're interested in professional one-on-one counseling services, feel free to contact me via Facebook Messenger at my Shanrae Cherie Price page, or via my email address at shanraecheriprice@gmail.com. I'm a lifestyle strategist, and my aim is to aid you in your life's goals and your life's dreams. All right, I want to thank you all, first of all, for participating all month long, because we're in our final week for this quarter. And I want to thank you for being with me on tonight. Is there any more questions before we go? If not, I will see you all Thursday night. Let me blow this up. I will see y'all Thursday evening, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where we're going to talk about this, but now how it affects a person in their adult years, in their relationships, in their marriages, when they're courting, when they're dating, even if they, well, a lot of people have friends with benefits. And see, that's an effect too, with different things like that. So we're going to move this along. Thank you all for participating with Counsel Today with Shanrae. I'm Shanrae. I will see y'all Thursday evening, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then after Thursday, I'll see y'all August 2022 for the month of August. Good night, everybody.